What's going on, guys? It's NBA week, opening week in the NBA. I'm a Piston fan. I'm gonna debate the. I'm actually gonna preview what I expect this year, and hopefully a return trip for the first time in the playoffs in 5 years. Detroit Pistons entering this year with another new head coach. This will be the fifth in the last five or 6 years. The 2010 era has been probably the most shaking era to be a Piston fan. Reminded us of the early 90s when the Pistons were in the middle 90s when the Pistons were struggling for a bit. It's been a struggle since the Boston Celtics in Game 6 of the '08 Eastern Conference Finals ended us. Chauncey Billups getting traded. It hasn't been, kind of. So as you look at this year's team, Greg Monroe was brought back, which I didn't agree with. I think this team should have parted with him. I don't see Greg Monroe fitting in the scheme anymore. Why? Because when they drafted Andre Drummond, essentially you thought Greg Monroe's days were numbered here. Greg Monroe, for the first 2 years of his NBA career, before the Andre Drummond era, was pretty solid for the Pistons. He's a pretty solid player, but I just don't see him fitting here. Especially Stan Van Gundy's got a decision, because you cannot put Andre Drummond, Josh Smith, Greg Monroe all in the same court. Now, the way I would line this team up would be Drummond, Smith, Sigler, KCP, and Brandon Jennings. Now, one thing I did learn in the preseason, the Detroit Pistons do have a lethal, they have lethal weaponry in their backcourt. New signing DJ Augustine, who they got at a good bargain in the offseason. This was a guy last year in Chicago, taking over for Derrick Rose. Averaged about 15 a game, shooting over 40 from the field, from downtown. DJ Augustine has traveled a bit. 7th overall pick back in '09. The reason why I think this combo would work is because DJ Augustine brings a lot to the table. Nate Robinson brought the same to the table when Derrick Rose was there. But when Derrick Rose was there, a lot was expected from DJ Augustine. They didn't bring him back. And DJ Augustine did want to go back, but it's just the money wasn't there. Detroit actually took less money because he liked the system in Detroit. Stan Van Gundy was impressed by him. Tom Gores told Stan Van Gundy, you got full control of this team, get whoever you want. Another good signing this team had in the offseason was veteran Caron Butler. Now, you're going to need a veteran presence on no matter what team. No matter what team you're on, you're going to need a veteran presence on the team. Detroit went and got a veteran presence. Guy that's a winner, an established veteran in this league, Caron Butler, 2-time All-Star with the Wizards. Last year, with Milwaukee, traded to... Who was he with last year, Mo? Wasn't he with the... He ended up...
It was Milwaukee. It was a
Milwaukee, but
failed
he got traded to Oklahoma City.
Yep.
Oklahoma City, he had a decent run. Another good fit, a big improvement in the preseason. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who I still support. I still back in by that draft pick, because if you would have went and got Trey Burke, then what was the point of getting Brandon Jennings? This team, well, at the time Brandon Knight was there before they traded, but Trey Burke, I wouldn't have wanted him here. Now that I think about it, we all raved about Trey Burke being here, wanting to come here, but I'm glad they went with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They need a guy that could score the ball. Last year was a little injury riddle, but towards the end of the year last year, had his solid numbers. He had 30-point game against Oklahoma City. Had averaged more than 20 a game, 15 a game in the preseason. Had a good preseason. Josh Smith, same thing. Josh Smith had a really good preseason. Kyle Sigler entering his 3rd year in the league, 2nd full year as a Piston. Or actually, 3rd full year as a Piston. I look at Kyle Sigler, watching him at Duke, winning a national championship. Kyle Sigler is going to break out this year. Kyle Sigler is going to have a good year for the Pistons. And announced earlier that he's going to be the starting small forward of Caron Butler. Josh Smith going to be starting at power forward. The best thing this team can do, you bench Greg Monroe. Number one, he held you out all summer and then accepted the qualifying offer, and you bench him. You deserve to bench this guy. You cannot. Josh Smith as a 4, better than Greg Monroe as a 4. Greg Monroe is meant to be a center. If I was Stan Van Gundy, I would explore my options. There was the rumor about the Rajon Rondo rumor, but the one thing that this team should do, if they want to shop Rondo, I could say you can keep Brandon Jennings there to start a backcourt between Jennings and Rondo. But you'd be smart to part ways with Monroe because you would get something for him for nothing. You should get something for him before he heads into free agency. Another thing that I like about this team is their second round pick, Spencer Dinwiddie from Colorado. Now, Spencer Dinwiddie, projected top 10 pick nearly a year ago before the season started. Spencer Dinwiddie led his conference in scoring. A torn ACL, which does bring down your stock a lot. Spencer Dinwiddie did make his debut last Thursday against Philadelphia. He could be available opening night Wednesday against the Denver Nuggets. Detroit does have 2 road games before coming home Sunday for the opener against the Boston Celtics. But a lot of people lost interest in the Pistons because of their consistency. But now people are starting to rave back. There's one reason why. The man in the middle, Private Zero, Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond, a guy that I wanted in the draft of 2012. A guy that has been took in the league, big men by storm, 15 almost every game. Andre Drummond, with a couple of years, will be the best center in the NBA. Motor is high. This guy's ceiling's very high. I don't see no flaw in him. Top 5 in field goal last year. Andre Drummond, as good as Ben Wallace was, Andre Drummond has got the potential breaking Bill Laimbeer. Ben Wallace is the best big man to ever strap on the uniform for the Pistons. And the Pistons better not let him go like they did with Ben. Once Ben got up to the superstardom, Ben walked away. Took the money and walked away. The Pistons were still elite for 3 more years, but the Pistons in a winnable conference, the Eastern Conference, who had a couple teams under 500 most of the year last year. This is a very winnable conference with Paul George going down for Indiana. Brook Lopez's health is not that good in Brooklyn. They lost Paul Pierce. A lot of teams, 1 through 3 or 4, considerably a lock with Cleveland, Chicago, Washington, and Miami are the only locks. Detroit, in my opinion, can get up to that number 5 seed. Detroit can be the Wizards of last year. The Wizards, or Toronto. Toronto went up to number 3 last year in the East because they were so consistent. Dwayne Casey, a good job up there. But Stan Van Gundy does not lose. A guy with his mentality does not lose. The difference between him and Mo Cheeks. Mo Cheeks never had the winning mentality in his blood. Stan Van Gundy took his team to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2009. And what I think could happen with this year's team, essentially, I hope Andre Drummond does make an All-Star team because he deserves it. Andre Drummond missed 24 games of his rookie campaign due to a compression fracture in his back. And then I think another key prediction, I think Josh Smith will break out this year. Josh Smith going back to his natural spot. Josh Smith, probably the best player in the NBA without an All-Star game. 17-9. Only one other player in NBA history has averaged 17, 9, and 7. Other than Josh Smith, that would be LeBron James. Josh Smith last year shot up way too many threes, and that was the problem. This is where Mo Cheeks failed. You do not start a 4 out of 3. You can't do that, especially the way that last year turned out. Towards the end, Detroit had some life going for the 8th seed, but they just fell. Now, it's a whole new year, a whole new coaching system. Detroit's been through this 5 times in the last nearly 6 years with the new coaching. Michael Curry, John Kuster, the list goes on. I just don't know what this team's going to go. But finally, to me, this is their first established coach since Flip Saunders. And he's back in coaching this year, Flip Saunders himself. So, in closing, Detroit should be in the playoff picture discussion this year. Josh Smith moving up to the 4. Kyle Sigler getting his chance to start. Stan Van Gundy gets to use some of his or the offense using Orlando to transform Andre Drummond to Dwight Howard. And the one Piston should be able to make the All-Star game should be Andre Drummond. And one key prediction I have for this team, they do part ways with Greg Monroe. I heard a rumor that they would be interested in Rajon Rondo. The proposed trade I think they should do, you should give up Greg Monroe, first round pickup next year, and you need, this is what the key part, you need a verbal commitment from Rajon Rondo to come to sign a long-term deal, just like what Cleveland did with Kevin Love. And also, you add Jeff Green to this deal. Detroit should add 2 more guys. If you're going to part ways with Brandon Jennings, I say you bring in Jeff Green too. Because Jeff Green is also another player worth having here. Jeff Green is established himself to be a future superstar in the NBA. And another guy that I would think Detroit should gun at a deadline, like per se, I think Luol Deng in Miami would be another guy they should gun. And if you take a look in LA, Detroit won't attract any superstars, but they could attract potential superstars by starting winning games. So in closing, Detroit, again, I said in closing before, but Detroit should be able to get the job done this year. I'm not expecting them to win a playoff series. I expect them to have a better record. I expect them to step it up. I expect Josh Smith to have a better year. Coaching will be great, and let's see where it goes from here. Let's hope Wednesday night they open up with something great. Thank you, guys.